Welcome back to another episode of ACR On Air, the official podcast of the American College of Rheumatology. I am your host, Dr. John Hausman. Show notes for this episode can be found at acronair.org. You can find our previous episodes on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. This episode will be a short one. Convergence is almost here, and with that, new trials, new medications, and new results. We're preparing a very hot episode for you to coincide with the opening ceremony at Convergence. To briefly discuss what's in store, I've invited my partner in crime, Dr. Vicki Shanmugam, host of our sister podcast, ACR Journals on Air. Vicki, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to join you again, John.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've been spending my nights taking a look at the schedule for ACR Convergence 2022. I'm so excited about all the meetings and actually being there in person. What about you, Vicki?
So full disclosure, I am not attending ACR Convergence, but I know I am not alone, and that for many ACR members, travel to Philadelphia this year is just not feasible. And I think the ACR recognizes this. And while it's great for people who want to converge to have that opportunity finally after a few years of completely virtual conference, it's also really important to the mission of the ACR that we meet our members where they are. And so ACR Journals on Air is going to bring the science to your earbuds, whether you're on the road or on the treadmill.
I love it. So this is like a teaser episode. What exactly do you have planned, Vicki?
Exactly. So think of this mini episode as like one of those treats from the chef that they bring out before you have a fancy meal.
Oh, like an amuse-bouche?
Exactly. I knew you would know the right word for that. So, listeners, whet your appetite. John and I will be meeting for a special hot off the press episode that's going to be dropping at 8 a.m. on Saturday, November 12th. Many people will know that Saturday is the opening day of ACR Convergence, and 8 a.m. is the time at which the embargo lifts as Convergence commences, and the science being presented at the meeting can finally start to be discussed. What some of our listeners may not know is that if you're lucky enough not only to have had your science selected for presentation at Convergence, but you're also organized enough over the summer to have submitted the same science to one of our journals and have your manuscript accepted for publication, then you can specifically request for your manuscript to be released to coincide with the start of the meeting. And new this year, if you won that triple lottery, then your manuscript may have been selected to be discussed in our Hot Off the Press podcast. Excuse the pun, a joint production of ACR On Air and ACR Journals On Air.
That is pretty special, and certainly it's the first time we've ever done that. Vicki, do you know anything about those manuscripts? Like what may be coming, what diseases we're going to be discussing?
Absolutely. So the science is currently under embargo and the data is highly guarded. But what I can tell you is that we'll be talking about 3 pivotal trials, 2 in lupus and 1, drumroll please, in osteoarthritis. Everything is highly top secret, so I cannot tell you anything else about the data today. But for our listeners, this Hot Off the Press podcast will be released Saturday, November 12th at 8 a.m. Tune in for a taste of the science being presented. But until then, our lips are sealed.
Wow, well said, Vicki. It sounds like a Michelin restaurant in progress.
Please give
Um,
us 5 stars.
right, not 1 star like a Michelin restaurant. This is awesome, Vicki. I can't wait to discuss these trials when we are allowed to do so. Until then, see you later. Well, there you have it. Check us out on Saturday, November 12th at 8 o'clock in the morning for our hot off the press episode. Thank you all for listening, downloading, subscribing to our show, and for rating us with 5 stars, or however many stars you think we deserve. You can find our show notes for this episode at acronair.org, and also on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio. I hope to see many of you at Convergence, or even virtually from home. Until then, Stay healthy.